Thank you for joining us to learn about our Introduction to Injury Prevention, our e-learning course. It is a real exciting um, milestone for Parachute, so thank you for joining us to learn more about it. I'm happy to have Stephanie Cowell and Sarah McDonald on with me today. So let's take a minute just to recap and situate the injury prevention issue in Canada. So this information, this data is taken from Parachute's Cost of Injury Report, our 2021 report. And you can see the leading causes of death um, for people in Canada are between the ages of 1 and 44 years. There are 48 deaths every day in Canada from a preventable injury. 4.6 million emergency department visits annually, and the cost to our Canadian economy is significant, $29.4 billion per year. And we know that that pretty much is the floor. It's much higher than that, but this is what we've been able to quantify. So, injury in Canada, even unintentional injuries are not accidents, and you will hear a lot of folks referring to what we call an unintentional or preventable injury as an accident. But the dictionary defines an accident as an unavoidable act of fate. And the thing is, we know that the vast majority of these injuries are predictable, which the good news is we can prevent them. And there are multiple points of potential intervention that we can have. So let me give you a very brief overview about Parachute. Our mission is really to create a safer Canada and looking at focusing on those serious and fatal injuries, basing all of our work on evidence-informed solutions. And we do a lot of work in advocating for change and educating. It's a response to this issue that Parachute was created. And we want to envision, and I think this is really important, people living in Canada living long lives to the fullest. And to do that, we need to be free of these serious and fatal injuries that are costing so much money in terms of finance, but also in human lives and in repercussions after a serious injury that is sometimes hard to quantify. At Parachute, we are very dedicated to our values and principles. I talked a little bit on this slide before about being evidence informed. That drives all of our decision and makes the foundation for any of the advocacy education programs, anything that we do. Being implementation focused, so action focused. How do we make a difference, especially with scarce resources, and being policy driven. And this speaks, I think, to the system level of change that we know can make a difference across geographic areas and across populations. We are, as a team and externally, very collaborative. We want to be complementary. We don't want to duplicate efforts that are out there. We want to work together. Because of scarce human resources, financial resources, and the magnitude of the issue, there are a lot of folks that we can collaborate with, and we do, and it's very much a part of our DNA. And we want to be innovative. We want to look at new solutions that are coming forward, but we want to be innovative also with the ways that we are sharing tried and true evidence-informed information. So it takes a bit of creativity to think about how do we apply apply this evidence and data and really focus it on action to make a difference. So we released our strategic plan. It started last year in 2024. It's a 5-year plan. And one of our key priorities is to be a national resource for injury prevention, information, and education. If you want to read the entire strategic plan, I invite you to take a look at it on our website. But for the purposes of this webinar, focusing on one of those priorities being the goal of building capacity in the field through education, certification opportunities for injury prevention professionals. And that can be a very wide field of people. There are those who identify themselves as injury prevention experts, but there are others working in fields like emergency services, education, community-based organizations that are also have injury as part of their role, and may not identify themselves specifically as injury prevention professionals, but certainly are part of the expanded field to that. And the introduction of this injury prevention e-learning course is the first step on our road to reach this goal. So I'm happy to hand it over to Stephanie Cowell, our Director of Knowledge Translation, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about the course itself, and I'll be back for your questions.
Thanks, Pam. So the reason we set capacity building as one of our strategic priorities at Parachute is because despite the magnitude of the injury issue, there is a critical lack of training and professional development opportunities for professionals working across sectors to address preventable injuries in Canada. And as Pam mentioned, those who currently work in the field of injury prevention are a diverse group. Our backgrounds and expertise come from a wide range of disciplines. We did not obtain a diploma in injury prevention. We have worked in public health or medicine. We may have worked in ambulance, fire, and police services. We may come from education, sport, social, and community services. We may come from urban and transport planning, and so many more different backgrounds that are critical perspectives that add to the amazing work of injury prevention. But none of these lines of work specifically train people in effective ways to create, implement, and measure injury prevention initiatives. And so we need to fill this gap. And the Introduction to Injury Prevention e-learning course is a first step to start enhancing the capacity of practitioners and organizations by orienting them to evidence-informed injury prevention practice, specifically in the context of Canada. And when we were thinking about what our first step would be in helping with this capacity building and training, we landed on a few principles to start. First, we are focusing on professional development. So there are other avenues to pursue that would look at, for example, Masters of Public Health programs, programs in medicine, graduate and undergraduate degrees. But for our starting point, we are focusing on professional development and continuing education. And so as we do, we start with who is our intended audience. So this first Intro to Injury Prevention course is intended for those who are who meet one of these features listed on the screen. So who is the user? You may be new to your role in injury prevention. So maybe that means you're a recent graduate. You've just started a job at a public health unit, a fire service, an organization, and your role includes injury prevention. It's also appropriate for placement students, those working within organizations. I know at Parachute, we see placement students, as valuable partnerships to mentor the next generations, but also to expose an opportunity to expose them to the field and practice of injury prevention, and perhaps foster interest in this future work. And finally, a lot of people in different professions transition to different teams. And so maybe you've worked at your organization for a while, but now you're working in an area that intersects with injury prevention. For example, maybe you're working in a public health unit, you were previously working on a team focused on sexual health, and now you find yourself working with, maybe physical activity and injury prevention. And as Pam mentioned, there are folks who don't necessarily see their entire role as being injury prevention. Maybe that's not in your title, but it does intersect with your work. So this type of training or exposure to the injury prevention field on the day-to-day may be new to you. And so this would be a great starting point to get oriented to the field and the concepts of injury prevention. And finally, maybe you just have an interest in injury prevention and seeing what it's all about. And this is a great opportunity to be exposed to this information and get a taste for it. So with these audiences in mind, the Introduction to Injury Prevention e-learning course provides an introductory overview of current principles, methods, and considerations for injury prevention in Canada. I'll now hand it off to Sarah McDonald, who's our coordinator of knowledge translation at Programs, to talk about the development process for the course.
Thanks, Steph. So before we began developing our own Introduction to Injury Prevention course, we actually came across this fantastic course that was developed by Injury Matters, who are located in Western Australia. And they had a course that was exactly what we were looking to develop, this Injury Prevention 101 e-learning course. And so we reached out to Injury Matters to see if they would be open to Parachute adapting their course for a Canadian context. And Injury Matters generously agreed to let us do that. Next slide, please, Steph. Perfect. And so Injury Matters gave us access to the course files, and we began an internal process here at Parachute of adapting the content for Canada. And some examples of what those changes looked like. Firstly, we pointed to Canadian institutions and sources of information. So on the screen here, you can see an excerpt from our Introduction to Injury Prevention course, where we point to different organizations in Canada that are really useful sources of injury information. We also included Canadian data in our course to speak to the injury issue in Canada. We included stories from people in Canada living with the outcomes of severe injury. And we also provided a list of Canadian injury prevention organizations across the country that learners could reach out to if they wanted to. So once we were happy with the content, we then moved into a process of external review by engaging some key partners. And so to select those partners, we put out a request through the Canadian Collaborating Centers for Injury Prevention, asking for volunteer reviewers. And we had 13 partners who came forward and completed that review process with us. And those partners included representatives from injury prevention, trauma, research, health journalism, and government. And to complete the review, we asked our partner reviewers to take the course and also simultaneously fill out a questionnaire that we developed here at Parachute. And that questionnaire asked them about things like the content of the course, the user experience, the technical functioning of the course, and also the price point that they felt might be appropriate for a course of this type. Once we received their feedback, we then integrated that feedback into our course design. Perfect, thanks, Steph. And that feedback led to some really important improvements to the course. And so some examples were we added resource highlights, and we can see on the screen here an example of what that looks like. And these resource highlights were just intended to engage learners a little bit more deeply in the content and guide them to extend their learning beyond the course. We also added videos throughout the course to address different learning styles. We added emphasis throughout the course on equitable approaches to injury prevention. And we also developed some downloadable resources that we include at the end of the course that learners can keep on file for their reference as well. And I know Steph will speak to those pieces in a bit more detail later on. After all the feedback was integrated, we did conduct one final round of review internally. So we had a selection of Parachute staff at that stage who took the course again, just checking for technical soundness. We wanted to make sure we caught any final issues before we made the course public. Sort of simultaneously alongside that partner review process, we also were working on developing the website itself that would host our course. So that is what you see here on the screen, Parachute Online Courses. This will be the website that will host the Introduction to Injury Prevention course and any future courses that we develop here at Parachute. And this website and the course itself are hosted by a platform called LearnWorlds, which is an excellent platform that is designed to put together exactly these kinds of online courses. So learners will be able to access Parachute online courses through our main website, parachute.ca. And again, I know Steph will speak in a little bit more detail about how to access the course. So I'll pass it back to you, Stephanie, to give us an overview of the course.
Great, thanks, Sarah. So between, the gap we are looking to fill, the intended audience, and the development process that Sarah just described, here's a little bit more about the content and style that we landed on for the course. So again, considering the audience, the learning objectives of the course are to ensure that users have gained a basic understanding of the issue and impact of injury in the Canadian context. Learners will have gained an understanding of the public health approach to injury prevention and knowledge about implementing and evaluating injury prevention interventions. To accomplish these learning objectives, the course is structured into 8 modules. So we begin with an introduction to injury in Canada, learning about the burden of injury, leading causes of injury, and both the financial and human impacts. Then we introduce the learner to the public health approach to injury in Canada. And the remaining modules walk the learner through the 5 stages in this public health approach. Along the way, you learn about key concepts, frameworks, resources, and tools to use when implementing this practice. We've also incorporated examples of existing initiatives in Canada to help flesh out these ideas. After the conclusion summarizes and wraps things up, there is a final test at the end to reinforce learning and to also produce a certificate for the user. Some of the features used throughout the course. First of all, the style of the course. A considerable amount of the course involves reading content, but based on keeping adult learning in mind, there are some other learning styles involved as well. So there is video content that users can engage with. There are links to information that's being spoken about in the course, so links to resources that connect directly to what you're learning at that time, and also links to additional information if delving further into that module is something that you're interested in. As Sarah mentioned, there are resource highlights throughout. So where we noticed a really important resource, tool, report that really connects directly to the content of the learning, we highlight that right in the context of the learning so that you can connect the dots right away. Those resource highlights and additional resources are also listed at the end of each module so that you can continue your learning or revisit it. Throughout the modules, there are learning checks, and these aren't meant as a right or wrong test. These are opportunities to reinforce what you've just learned, kind of check in on your comprehension, because the goal of the course overall is that learning, achieving those learning objectives and supporting you as an injury prevention professional. And finally, at the end of the course, we provide a couple of downloadable resources in addition to what's throughout the course, and those are a glossary of key terms and concepts, as well as a list of all of the resources offered throughout the course. So you can have those as reference points to download and keep for yourself. And what you'll see on the screen is an example of some of this more interactive content. And this is an important example in the introduction to injury in Canada, which is highlighting the stories of people impacted by injury. So those are presented in different ways. For example, reading the story from the person's perspective or watching a video featuring that person's story. As I mentioned, at the end of the course, there will be an online test to generate a certificate of completion. And This certificate acknowledges the successful participation in the Introduction to Injury Prevention e-learning course. Please note that the course and the certificate are for educational purposes only, and the certificate does not confer any professional licensing or clinical privileges. Actually, I forgot to mention, for those who have not yet really delved into the field of injury prevention, those looking to take the course, our reference here on the certificate of completion to the course being completed by William Haddon. If you are new to this and you take the course, you'll learn exactly who William Haddon is. So a little Easter egg for you. And so we're really excited that today, February 19th, 2025, marks the official launch of the Introduction to Injury Prevention e-learning course. To access the course, you simply visit the Professional Resources section of Parachute's website and navigate to our training page. This link, parachute.ca/training, will take you right there, and the course can be purchased for $34.99 Canadian dollars. On that training page as well, we will have links to other training resources, and it'll be an area that will be continuing to grow with information developed by Parachute as well as our partners and collaborators. There is also a Parachute story available on our website for anyone interested in learning more about the context for this project. And so now I'll hand it over to Pam to wrap us up with our future directions for this work, and then we'll move on to any questions that you have.
Thanks, Steph. Yeah, so this is one course, it's the first one, it's a big milestone for sure for Parachute. But we are looking to really, as I said at the beginning, to look at building capacity in the field and pulling people together as a sector. So the vision really is to create a hub of learning in injury prevention that includes both offerings like this introductory course that Parachute has created, but we also want to make available content from other credible sources. So again, going back to that value of not recreating the wheel, not duplicating. If there's a good course available on a particular issue, we would look at making that link available on the hub of training at Parachute. So this includes things like a certification, like Steph mentioned that this particular course does not confer, but because there is no specific training in Canada around injury prevention, is there a need, a desire, a demand around certifying people at a particular level or standard of knowledge in injury prevention? It could also mean specific topics on injury. So that could range from child injuries to, falls or child passenger safety or something very specific. In particular, emerging issues might be something that we look at, again, looking at how can we get the best information into people's hands quickly as possible and in a way that is credible and evidence-based. So micro courses or micro credentialing, you may have heard that's very academic sector-based language, but looking at what are some of the offerings. And so feedback from people who are taking the course or people who are looking for courses in injury prevention are going to be very important for us as we build this out. We've been having some conversations with some colleagues in the US that are already offering training. They're doing the same thing. They're looking at where are there credible courses that are available. We would look at, is there a cross-border opportunity here, again, to leverage that where there are not Canadian-specific needs, or whether there is a way, like we worked with our partners in Western Australia, to adapt something for the Canadian audience, those types of things. So these are all the types of discussions that we've been having at Parachute and with some of our partners across the country to really build something that is meeting the needs, but also maybe pushing some of the creative or innovative boundaries as well. So I would encourage you to stay tuned as we look at what those opportunities are, and definitely send feedback to us to let us know what you're looking for. And that will really help us meet the needs of the community in Canada. So I think we are on to the Q&A section. I see there's a couple of questions in here, but I did want to say, Gerald, the comment that you made, I prefer a celebration of learning versus a test to reduce test and quiz anxiety. I do like that approach. I hadn't heard that one before. So, all right. So Stephanie and Sarah, the first question is about discounted options for training for charities and groups of individuals looking to take the training together. So this is around, I guess, the the cost of the course itself. This is one question that we haven't, I don't think, decided upon. We tried to price the course at a very reasonable level for individuals, but we had sort of parked the question about groups, if there was a large group. Steph, I don't know whether you want to add to that answer.
Yeah, so the price of the course is quite reasonable for a learning that takes 2 hours or less, is quite extensive, and provides information that's not available through other training. We really want to emphasize the importance that organizations actually designate resources for capacity building and for injury prevention professionals. We've found historically that this often isn't the case compared to other fields. So we are really, encouraging to rethink this kind of resourcing towards this issue being the number one public health concern for people in Canada ages 1 to 44. That said, Parachute is a charitable organization, so we understand the realities of funding and available resources. And actually, the development of this course, Parachute did without any funding support. We used all of our own in-kind staff time to develop this internally. And for us, no one funds us to just exist and to have core staff time. So for us, it was an important priority to put this ahead. Really kind of the cost, which is minimal, recognizes kind of the value of all of this. As Pam said, we haven't yet put in a model in place for the example provided. For example, if there are large groups, for example, in the past, many years ago, in the older school style of courses, that involved DVDs and CD-ROMs and other such technology of the time, I know there were times when kind of we worked with organizations who purchased maybe bulk licenses at a discounted rate, things like that. So I think hearing this question, we'll take it away and see if there's anything that we can arrive at and provide that information out. But if that is something in particular you're interested in, please do feel free to let us know, because we want to make informed decisions. So if there are demands for things, we want to have evidence of that demand so that we can make decisions based on that evidence.
Thanks, Stephanie. That was great. And the next question, is there a deadline in enrolling for the course and timeline in achieving and finishing each module, taking the exam, that kind of thing? So, Sarah, maybe you want to take this question?
Sure, thanks, Pam. So the short answer is no, there's no timeline or deadlines built into the course. So this is a fully self-directed course. Stephanie mentioned earlier, this course takes 2 hours or less to complete. So you're welcome to do that in as many short sessions as you like. You could do it in one long session, whatever suits your needs. There's no requirement to finish it on any given timeline.
Right. We wanted to make it as easy as possible, I guess, in terms of finishing the module. So Sarah, you can go in and do part of it, and then come out and go back in. Is that?
That's correct. Yeah. So the LearnWorlds platform that I mentioned earlier that we use for this course, if you sign in with an account, you purchase the course, and once you're in the course, there are there's a progress tracking system. So you can begin the first module. You can go out of order if you wanted, but we probably wouldn't recommend that because each module builds on the previous. But yeah, you start the course however you like, and then it will keep track of where you are. So the next time you log in, it will indicate to you where you left off and you can jump back in at that point.
All right. And maybe, there's an exam at the end, but there is some testing or celebrating learning using Gerald's terminology throughout the course. So it's really, based on adult learning principles and self-directed learning. So hopefully that will, support people's time commitment too. So, you may think you have an hour or two to sit down and do the course, and then something comes up. You won't lose your place or lose what you've already done. And then afterwards, Sarah, so after the course is completed, maybe you can talk a little bit about what, like the access to the portal that folks will have.
Yeah, so you'll always be able to go back and review the course anytime you like. So your account will remain. You'll have a username and password. You can log in anytime. You can go back and review any of the modules as many times as you like. So if you want to come back and do the whole course again a year later, you could do that. You will get your certificate at the end of the course. You'll have the option to download that. And if you ever need to go back in to get it again, you've lost track of it, you can do that. You can just go right back into the final module called certificate. And you can go back in and re-download your certificate there. You can see the results you got on the test again, all of that. So it's completely, it remains completely accessible to anybody who's signed up for the course.
Right. So basically, once you have an account, your information and access to the course, I guess that's also a important piece, is that, you don't lose that access. If you, as you say, if you want to go back and refer or refresh, you have access to the course afterwards. Mhm. All right. Thanks, Sarah. Okay, interesting question, Gerald. Would a company be able to purchase and add this to their own LMS? We have not had that question or even thought about that. We've had some organizations say that they were going to make this part of their onboarding and training for their teams, like in public health. Parachute itself, we're going to make this part of our orientation package to new staff and team members. But adding this to their own LMS, we'd have to look at the technical way to do this, or whether it would be a link directly from the company to this platform where they would log in and do the regular things. But we would need to go back to our IT folks and sort of think about how that might be done. So Gerald, if you're interested in something like that, reach out to us and we can certainly explore that. We're open to any, this is just the beginning, so we're definitely open to any ideas that you might have to get this out and in front of people who really need it. Steph and Sarah, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you covered that well, Pam. I think, yeah, the way it's set up now, it would be a link into the course at the moment. It's not set up currently where you could pull it and sort of integrate it into your own platform. That would be a sort of involved process, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, the other one that I can think of is working with our partners out in BC. UBC has a um, a, a course that runs for a full semester, and they are interested in making this available to the students who are taking that course. But it would be again a promotion or a link from that course out to this the Learn Worlds platform. I hope that answers your question, Gerald. All right. Are there any other questions in terms of content or logistics or anything from any of the attendees still online? Give everyone one last couple of seconds to put their question in if they have it. While we're doing that, Stephanie or Sarah, did you want to add anything? I know sometimes when we present these things at the end, some things come to mind. So is there any last words that you'd like to share with everyone?
Sure, I can start. First of all, thanks for everyone for your interest in the course. We do think it's a really important priority and exciting opportunity, and glad to expand our thinking about who makes up the field of injury prevention. If there are any folks online who are perhaps unfamiliar with some of Parachute's other offerings, in our professional resources on our website, we also have recorded webinars on a wide variety of topics, particularly our priority topics in the areas of road safety and safe mobility, fall prevention, concussion and poisoning prevention. We also point to excellent data sources and tools, key reports in injury prevention. We also have recorded episodes of our great podcast, Popping the Bubble Wrap, focused on injury prevention for parents in Canada. So if you're unfamiliar with our suite of professional resources, please do check it out. But we're really thrilled to add this training and hopefully future trainings to the offerings that we provide.
Thanks, Stephanie. Sarah?
I'd just like to take the chance now to once again thank our key partners that were involved in the review process. It was absolutely instrumental to making the course what it is now. So a huge thank you to all of the CCC members who joined us on this journey. And also to Injury Matters of Western Australia as well for collaborating with us and allowing us to adapt your course. It really moved the needle forward for us in a big way.
Yes. Thank you. We do have another question. Can you share the slide or document that outlines the course content? This one. Yes. So, yeah, could we send that out with the notice of the recording, Steph or Sarah?
Definitely, we will, in follow-up to this webinar, we'll share out a number of key resources. So we'll share this recording from this webinar today to everyone who registered. And we'll also share some further information. We have a key information document, for example, that does outline these modules there. We'll share the link to the course. And if you're looking specifically for the details of the course modules and even a little bit of a further breakdown, which you can see sort of a screen capture there on the slide of what that looks like. You'll be able to see that on the Parachute online courses website as well. So when you get that course link, you'll be able to sort of preview what's involved in the course. So yes, we'll share, definitely make sure that you have access to all that information.
Wonderful.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Sarah. We really want to make it easy for you to share the course with your organization, folks who might be interested, answer basic questions about the course. So as Sarah described, we'll, in follow-up to everyone registered for this webinar, we will send out a bit of a package of information that should make it easy to share and reshare. And we're always happy to hear from you if there are ways that we can collaborate, or if there are other things you're looking for that we haven't provided that will help kind of promote and engage with the course, please do let us know.
That's wonderful. Thank you both. So I don't see any other questions. That's great. We're at just about how long we anticipated the webinar going, so this is fantastic. Thanks to all of you who joined us on the webinar and for others who are viewing it afterwards. A big shout out to Stephanie, to Sarah, to Michael Guimar, who's working on the back end, but was very much involved with getting this course launched, and to Kelly Tian and the team at Parachute for making this milestone happen. Congratulations, thank you. And as Stephanie said, our emails are open. Please reach out with any questions or suggestions or ideas. We'd be happy to hear them. So thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.